Hey guys, this is Tim Coomer, author of MyPersonality.life, the online personality assessment that will help you understand the core personality traits that make up you and how that will impact life decisions and the ability to create positive life change. Now I've got a sample report right here that I'm going to walk through with you and just give you a feel for the types of things you will receive in this report. Now, when you take My Personality, there's going to be 181 items or questions that you have to respond to. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes. I encourage you to set aside enough time to take the test, to really thoughtfully answer the questions to the best of your ability as honestly as possible. Then once you're complete, you'll get a report that looks like this. It's about 20 to 24 pages long. And it begins with an explanation or an overview of personality traits. Then it gets into looking at a summary of all the key personality traits in the Hexaco model, which is honesty, humility, emotionality, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness. Now, each of those 6 major traits also have 4 subtraits, and you'll get a measure of those. And then you'll get a detailed explanation of all of the different major personality traits and their subtraits. So you get an explanation of that. Then I give you a brief summary of the discipline strategy, which is what I talk about in my book, which has to do with that 10-step process where I use the word discipline as an acronym for decide, investigate, sort, conceive, implement, persevere, loop, intensify, notice, and enjoy. That's the full 10-step process from the point where you make a decision and you go all the way through investigating, conceiving a plan, implementing it, persevering, being very intense as you approach your goal, then noticing what you've done and enjoying that accomplishment and working on the positive psychology technique called PERMA, where you increase your well-being and happiness over time. So I give you a summary of that in the report, and then we start walking through taking that core personality assessment and looking at how it applies to those steps in the discipline process. So first we'll look at decide. We'll look at, are you an organized decision maker who has self-discipline, deliberates on decisions with careful thought? Are you orderly, self-disciplined, and able to deliberate effectively? And you get a measure of that and then some explanation. The text that goes with that measure is sensitive to where you fall in that scale. Next, we look at, as you are making your decision, are you open to new ideas, information, or pathways? Then we simply look at openness, a measure, are you open to the new ideas and concepts that you're investigating? Then we'll talk about, are you vulnerable to indecisiveness? A lot of people get really stuck in that decision-making process, and this measure of your vulnerability to indecisiveness will help you decide if you need perhaps some more support during the decision-making process. I give you some information about that. How much of a risk taker are you? So I measure your tendency to take risk, something that can be very informative as you're making decisions, big life-changing decisions. Do you choke under pressure? Your personality can help predict whether your decision-making abilities deteriorate or improve under pressure. Knowing this may help you plan the best time and condition for your decision-making. Some people in a low-stress situation can make perfectly fine decisions, but under a high-stress situation, their decision-making ability drops very low. So being aware of that will help you surround yourself with some support, friends, family, mentors, when you're in a high-pressure situation to help you make more effective decisions. Now, other people under high pressure will make very good decisions, perhaps even better decisions under high pressure than they do in low-pressure scenarios. Next, we look at the investigating, sorting, and conceiving piece of the plan and look at the question, will you be a good investigator as you gather information about your decision and build your knowledge base? Some people are great at investigating and gathering information. Other people just immediately go straight to I'm bored to death with this, I can't do the research. So knowing where you are on that scale will help you plan and anticipate some challenges, and I make some suggestions on how you might get some assistance if you're not a great investigator. Next, sorting information is kind of an abstract reasoning process. Some people were born with that ability to sort and organize things. I had one child who would sort their blocks and their food items when they were like 2 years old, and definitely that skill of organizing shows up early in some people's lives. Others just really don't want to do that or are frustrated by that process. So we'll look at how sorting and organization skills are for you. Again, all of this is designed to help you anticipate where the challenges might be so that you can get additional assistance or allow additional time for some of these steps in a life change process. Conceiving a plan. How are you at taking all this information you've gathered, synthesizing it, and conceiving a plan? We'll measure that and talk about that. Implementing. So once you go through this process where you've made your decision, you've done some research, you've researched, sorted through information, and conceived a plan, then you have to actually implement that plan. So I talk about this process of implementing, persevering, and looping back in the process, making any adjustments, and then really intensifying your effort once you've got everything streamlined and kind of tweaked and improved. So we'll look at your implementation skill, how you are with implementing things. We'll look at your capacity for perseverance and grit. Grit's got a lot of publicity recently with some books that have been out. And I'll measure not just your grit, but really measuring your capacity to persevere and have grit in the face of significant challenges, which, as we all know, as we attempt to change habits or pursue a goal, we will run into significant challenges, and you have to be able to persevere through that. Burnout vulnerability. Are you the type of person who will hit burnout pretty quickly? I measure that and discuss some options for you if that's the case. Some people are very vulnerable to burnout. Once they begin pursuing a goal and things get kind of intense, they can quickly feel apathetic and lose the energy and the drive. It's a good thing to be aware of. Your capacity for intensity. People who are low or high in that vulnerability to burnout may or may not have the capacity for intensity. You may not be vulnerable to burnout, but you may also not be able to be very intense in your pursuit of your goal. So understanding where you fall on these two scales will help you plan, anticipate timing challenges. So what is your capacity for intensity? So that's a quick walkthrough of the My Personality test. I designed this test myself based on literally hundreds of research studies and research that has occurred in this industry of personality modeling over the past 30 years. I have a PhD in business, and my focus was on personality modeling and how it affects job performance. And I've done additional research into how it affects life performance, and specifically how it relates to my book and what I teach with the discipline strategy. In addition to the test, you can also sign up for a 30-minute coaching session with me. I'll walk through the test, discuss it with you, discuss specifics of your test results and what that might mean for you and the goal that you share with me. And I also have a more intensive coaching session where for a 2-week period, we'll schedule several phone calls. We'll see how far we can get into this discipline strategy process. We'll talk about the decision that you've got in front of you or the goal. We'll look at the information you probably need to be gathering, talk about how you might discuss this with mentors. We'll gather some information together. I'll have you go off and do a couple of things. In our next session, we'll talk about what you've discovered. We'll talk about how to pull that all together, create a plan that's unique for you, and then talk about how you're going to implement and persevere. And if later down the line you want to do some more coaching sessions, you can schedule that with me. Okay, I'm Tim Coomer. I hope that you're excited about taking this personality test and starting the life change process and hopefully using the discipline strategy type method that I teach. Thanks a lot.